About like ham. Ham with coffee. So I got 3 people. Yeah. It's ready to go. Yes, everybody gets it. I think we're going to from that using value. Make sure everybody does. Let's go through rain. I don't always want to know. Yes.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. We got a nice crowd here this morning. Welcome to all the guests and everything here tonight. And still coming in. That's good. Welcome you to the Seaford Board of Education meeting for February 22nd of 2023. And our first item is the approval of the agenda. We've all had a chance to look it over. Recommended action is to approve the agenda as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Marcus Wright, second.
Then moved and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, if you could, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment of silence. Thank you. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes from the January the 17th board meeting. Mr. Savage, you were not present, so you cannot vote on this. All others can vote. Recommended action is to approve the minutes of 1/17/2023 public board meeting.
Marcus Ryder move to approve the minutes of the 1/17/2023 board meeting.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the January 17th, 2023 board public meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item number 5 is public participation. We will be skipping over that. We had no forms turned in. We'll move on to the part 6 of the agenda. It is reports and presentations. And I will turn meeting over to Mrs. Dara Savage for the presentation.
You want to introduce anybody first? Or just me? Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay.
I'll just let her introduce.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I cannot imagine not being able to attend one of our outstanding schools here in the Seaford School District because of the color of my skin. But that is exactly what happened not so many years ago. Many of us would say that we have been brave in certain situations from time to time, but I can't imagine the courage a child must have had to go to school every day, knowing that many did not want you there, did not think you had the intelligence to thrive there, or thought you may be less than because of the melanin in your skin. But that is exactly what happened not so many years ago. Escorted by police and surrounded by protesters, Carol Cook Kellum, Alvin Cook, and Sam Jones were the first students of color to attend Central Elementary in 1960. Just one generation later, Chandra Phillips, the daughter of Carol Cook Kellum, now serves as principal of the very school her mother helped to desegregate. If that's not Black history, I don't know what is. This plaque that we will be unveiling tonight is significant for a number of reasons, but mainly because it tells the story of Black strength, courage, resilience, and excellence to the Seaford School District students and staff for generations to come. We are extremely proud to recognize and permanently honor the amazing history right here in the halls of one of our elementary schools. Their place here at Central Elementary was questioned and challenged in 1960. But as of this day, the Central Three are now a permanent part of Central Elementary School.
Could we have Mrs. Kellum and Mr. Cook and Mr. Jones come up front here, please? Eric, come over here also. Just together. You'll be able to look at this, and I'll give you a rendition of this or a plaque that you can take with you tonight. I will say to the audience also, we will be recognizing, once this plaque is mounted out in the foyer or the lobby of the Central Elementary, we'll hold another recognition. So, and that's all finished. We had a little problem with some of the wording on there.
Everybody got your camera? Count down.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, Go, Mom.
Here's one for you.
That's my honey, that's my cousin.
Good job. My principal.
That's my daughter. Anybody see my girlfriend? This is your mama.
Got everybody?
Any more? Cheese.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Again, I want to thank everyone for this great recognition. And like I said before, a permanent plaque will be mounted in the lobby as soon as we get the final thing made. So, which will be shortly. And also, I will mention also at this time, you don't have to stay for the meeting if you want to leave. This is the opportune moment for you to step out. That's your choice.
They want you and your mom and your grandma. Thank you. Getting them down here.
Plan on taking it, Mom. Sorry. Oh, I can't bend it on that long. Cause you hold it, everybody look like when you're screen looking. Look at back, G, in the front and down a little. They were not. Yeah.
Don't move, don't move.
Thank you for letting us get that. Yeah, you're yeah. Thank y'all. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it might be better. All right, our next report is Superintendent's Communications. So I'll turn that over to Dr. Nicholas.
All right, thank you very much. So that was definitely an exciting presentation. And Dara, I just want to thank you for your words. I thought that was very well done.
Thank you for the opportunity. I was honored.
It really hits the nail on the head for, I feel, what the Seaford School District's all about. Thinking about our past, where we come from, celebrating that, and really celebrating where we've come now. So just a great night for me as superintendent, hopefully for the entire school board. Another highlight for us is that last night our basketball team won the Henlopen Southern State Championship. So that was exciting, and I'm really happy for the coaches and the athletes, but I also want to highlight the work that was done by a lot of staff members and our AD, Coach Quillen. A lot of work and planning goes into sporting events. So behind the scenes work, if you're watching the news or reading the paper, you hear about so many incidents occurring at sporting events around the nation, also just in our state. And anytime you play a rival to the north or south, it always gets heated. Gym or football field's always crowded. And, you know, what I saw last night was just a lot of preparation come to action. And it was amazing to see. Obviously, spirits were pretty high, animated. And there were some situations where, you know, some of our athletes had to be separated from one another, or at that time when it gets loud, it was amazing to watch the response of our constables, our SRO, Seaford PD, support staff working the event. At no time did I feel we didn't know what to do in any situation. It was really, really impressive. And I also just want to thank our fans. They're amazing. Really supporters. They're there for the right reasons, supporting our team. It's the most animated I think I've seen our home fans all year. So it was great to see. And on top of that, we came out with a win. Maybe at times a little closer than we wanted it to be, but we still got the W. So congratulations to all involved. We also, I would like to just highlight Mr. Zoll. He really spent a lot of time in organizing the Polar Bear Plunge. And as a district, we raised $10,000. Over 30 staff members plunged. Mr. Zoll was one I was not. One of them.
You've been doing it for how many years?
6 years.
Mr. Benson just signed up next year.
Wrote you down.
Be like tomorrow.
So just another great event. And, you know, I like the fact that the district's represented around the state and in Rehoboth Beach. So that was great. Thank you for organizing that. This Thursday, Frederick Douglass is going to host their health fair and also a kickoff of their One Book, One Fred. We're excited. Also, they had a 5th grader, Myasia Williams, who won a Del Dot Name That Plow contest. And the name that won was Scoop Dog. I would have voted for Scoop Dog. That's definitely a great name. Just want to remind everyone, board and community members, that we're going to be hosting a public meeting March 6th. And what we'll be doing is, you know, each director will be working through some meetings before our board meeting with community stakeholders. And we'll be sharing out on topics such as educator pipelines, special education parent councils, buildings and grounds, ESSER funds, some education topics as well. So we're really excited for that because it really gives us an opportunity to open up and really share some of the big buckets, if you will, we use that term a lot, of what we work on in the district all year. And it's also more of an informal setting where a community can ask questions. I know Mr. Cameron will work on advertising that event out to make sure our board and community are aware of that event. So this is a time of year where I spend some time with our administrators. And as you know, we've been doing a lot of work with UDA the last few years. And part of that work is in the beginning of the year, you set your 90-day plan for the work you want to accomplish in 90 days. But this is the time where you reflect on that and you also launch your next 90 days. So we'll be talking about that at our mid-year meetings. We have a platform called Who Knew It, which is a pretty intensive data platform where we look at areas such as student achievements. We look at areas such as attendance and behavior, and we really do a data check to kind of see where each school's at this time of year. We can compare it to past year's data to see if we're trending in the right directions. And then we sure hope that those 90-day plans are a reflection of what we're seeing in the data during the district. So that's the work we're working on currently. And just want to let the board know that next Thursday and Friday, I'll be attending the superintendent retreat. We've also registered in the state. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholas, for those highlights. And again, thanks to everybody that was involved with this recognition we had this evening. Thank you, Derek, for your words. Very good. And also congratulations again to the basketball team for this is the third consecutive season that we've been in the Southern Division games, right? All right, very good. Okay, moving on to board communications. Tonight, I just want to highlight with the board the legislative committee meeting that I attended and chaired on February the 1st of 2023. This was our first legislative committee meeting for the year. The first thing that the committee did was review the current legislation and reviewed the House bill and took positions on the bills as follows. House Bill 29, this act increases the senior property tax credit to $750 from $400. Authorized in the appropriations bill for fiscal year ending June the 30th of 2023, which effectively amended Title 29, paragraph 6102 from 500 to 400 and the committee voted to support House Bill 29. The next bill that we reviewed was House Bill 30. This act relates to the disabled veteran property tax and removes the 3-year residency requirement to qualify for disabled veteran tax credit. The committee voted to support House Bill 30. House Bill 31. This act reinstates the credit against school taxes up to $400 for seniors who have lived in Delaware for 3 years or more. After 10 years as a resident in Delaware, the credit would increase to $500. Under the current law, the credit is $500 after 10. The committee voted to support House Bill 31. House Bill 23. This act increases funding for preschool children with disabilities who are not counted in either intensive or complex special education units by revising the current ratio of 12.8 students per unit to 8.4 students per unit for children 3 years of age and older enrolled in a preschool program. This is the same ratio in effect as of July 1st of 2023 for K-3 basic special education. This act also, this is still House Bill 33, creates a new preschool 2 unit with a ratio of 7 students per unit. This is to accommodate the 2-year-olds with disabilities who are enrolled in school district programs. The Office of Child Care Licensing requires a ratio of 1 to 7 for classrooms that have 2-year-olds in them. The preschool funding change is effective July 1st of 2023. The legislative committee voted to support House Bill 33. The next bill is House Substitute 1 to House Bill 34. This bill requires school boards, including charter schools, to permit public comment on each agenda item presented for a vote at school board meetings. Dr. Marinucci had previously polled the legislative committee for a position on House Bill 34 since it was being heard in committee prior to DSBA legislative committee meeting. There were questions about the wording of the bill. Dr. Marinucci made it clear in his testimony in both chambers of the Education Committee meetings that the intent of the bill and DSBA's support a single public comment session prior to action items. Excuse me. This bill should not be construed to mean a separate public comment session for each action item. House Substitute 1 clarifies the meaning. The committee voted to support House Substitute 1 to House Bill 34. And I would also might add, ever since I've been on the board, going on 10 years, we've always had a public participation at the beginning of the meeting. And also, that gives anybody the opportunity to talk about any of the agenda items that are coming up in our meetings. And also, I will point out that the agenda is posted 1 week ahead of when and all this is prescribed by law. Seifert is following the law. I can also tell you too about this particular bill. I think the biggest problem is that there are some charter schools that are not following the law to the T. So that's why they're presenting this. House Bill 42 is another bill that we looked at. This act relates to the limitation on public school tax after general reassessment. This bill removes up to 10% increase in school property taxes allowed after reassessment. The committee strongly opposes this bill. We opposed the bill in the last session. And also this bill is currently, I'll give you this information, is currently tabled in the House Committee, Education Committee. And John does not feel that it has legs to come out. Again, like I said, they brought it up last year. We opposed it. And we strongly still oppose this particular bill. House Bill 56. This act relates to the tax treatment of certain student loan repayments and makes a loan repayment non-taxable for state income tax purposes. The committee voted to support House Bill 56. Then the next thing the committee did in that meeting on February the 1st, the committee then reviewed the Senate bills and took positions on the following bills. Senate Bill 24. This act relates to the Seizure Safe Schools Act and requires all schools with a student diagnosed with a seizure disorder to train at least 2 employees in the administration of rescue medication or treatment prescribed to treat a student with a seizure disorder. The committee voted to support the concept of the bill, but Dr. Marinucci needs to work with the sponsor to develop a replacement bill or amendment to the bill to make it appropriate. So that's where we stand. And then Senate Bill 32. This bill adds visual impairments, including blindness, to the list of programs to be conducted on a 12-month schedule. The committee voted to support Senate Bill 32. Then I moved to old business. There were 2 things that were brought up. I'll just mention these to you. Dr. Marinucci reported on the extension for the date to encumber or spend CARES Act 2 and 3 funds has been requested by DOE and the state. And the other item under old business, Dr. Marinucci updated us about the water testing as well as the student lead testing and screening. Everybody there, of course, was in agreement that the lead exposure is a serious issue and the district/schools need to assist with the lead mitigation efforts of lead is identified in a school water supply. But it was also mentioned too that schools represent only a fraction of the potential lead exposure that students are exposed to. There's a lot of other things out too. Under new business, there were 3 items. One, there's a discussion about the governor's recommended budget and emphasis on the 3% and 6% recommended salary increase. Another item that was under new business, we talked about major capital improvement market pressure funding because prices are rising before the funds and it throws off the budget. And then also, Dr. Marinucci mentioned that the Newcastle and Sussex legislative meetings that he attended, that the main subject that was discussed at these meetings pertained to school safety and security. He also pointed out that one of PSBA's legislative priorities is to advocate for the shifting of safety and security funding from capital budget to operating budget. And then the last thing, we moved into round table. There was a couple items that was discussed there and brought up and probably followed on later. There was a discussion regarding the need for English language learner supports, that's ELL, as well enhance special education supports. The districts are being flooded with ELL students without adequate resources to serve them. And then also the legislative committee discussed the SATs as being the current testing mechanism for student and school performance being unfair to students, teachers, and schools. A discussion led to a general agreement that Delaware needs a measure of student performance that is fair and appropriate. And then we adjourned the meeting at 8:12. Any questions?
And I do just want to clarify on those tax bills talked about in the beginning. While the individuals, the seniors, the veterans would be receiving a tax credit, we would not be losing any revenue because the state would pick up that slack. So as a district, we're not losing any revenue from those tax credits, which is why we're able to strongly support those bills.
That's true. Thank you.
Mr. Todd, I do want to ask a point of clarification regarding the seizure bill. the DSBA was in support of it, but what they wanted to
So the way the building-
clarification on it because the way it's phrased.
Yeah.
Okay, that, yeah.
That was the question. We're wholeheartedly backing the actual law, so to
Right.
speak, for the act, but
It has to be written in a way that's.
it has to be written.
That's gonna make sense to us. Yes.
Yes. That's correct.
Just wanted to be.
Thank you. All right, the next report, the presentation is on school safety and security updates, and I will turn that over to Mr. Zoll.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you go to that first? Right, so Dr. Mickelson in his start, and then in some of that legislative priorities, you've also heard, so school safety and security takes a big push for us. What you see on screen, some of the things that happened in Delaware and across the country as we go on throughout. I don't want to go over each one of them because I'm sure you've seen them all in the news. Our goal, obviously, is to try to make sure none of these events happen in Seaford schools. But if they do, we also want to make sure we have a plan in place to keep our students safe and our families safe as we kind of go through these processes. So as I go through the things that we've kind of talked about, feel free to stop me on any of them that you have questions on, or at the end if you have any points of clarification. All right. So first one, the RAVE app, I know is something that the district and the state pushed out a few years ago. COVID kind of stopped the implementation of it a little bit because with less people in the building, it didn't take on as much of a priority. So the RAVE app is an app that staff can get on their phones, and two things it does, right? One, if there's an emergency in the building and I push that RAVE app button, everyone knows where I am and what's going on. But the second thing it also does, it sends an alert out to every staff member in that building that something is going on. So we were able to, with the help of Kim Timmons, we went to every school, we did a staff meeting, and we got staff signed up. And I believe at last count, we had over 200 staff that had either downloaded the app or agreed to get the alerts that were pushed out. One of the things we're going to work on the rest of this year is actually testing that app at some of our schools to see how it actually works and how we can implement it. Two other apps that we're working on, Beacon and Stop It. So the Beacon app is nice. It's going to allow us to monitor students off campus in case of any threats in terms of them looking for active shooter situations or in terms of suicide and self-harm. So as long as they're signed into a Seaford school district Chromebook or they're logged on to Schoology, the computer program for Beacon kind of picks up those target works and would send us an alert outside of school hours that we could get in contact with police and the students' parents, just check on their safety and make sure that they're okay. So Beacon, well, we're getting set up and going right now. And then the Stop It app is going to be the non-supporting app tool that we are going to have at our middle school and high school. So in case anyone offsite sees something on social media that's alarming or there's bullying going on, they can report it anonymously and then we can research it and do some work on it. So again, just to make sure we can kind of fix that quickly. Cameras, with the help of Patches, and I appreciate it, and Doug on this as well. We have mapped out all of our schools. So our 4 elementary schools going to get brand new systems that have cameras in all areas, both inside and outside. The middle school, a full replacement because their cameras are very old. And the high school, pretty much a full replacement as well. Going through the nice part to this that we like is it's going to be cloud-based. So if myself or Dr. Nicholas or anyone's up in Wilmington, and something's going on, we can patch the camera right to them. If something's going on, we can patch it right to the Seaford Police Department, and they can see those cameras instantaneously and see what's going on.
This is all. What brand did we end up going with?
We haven't chosen yet. I think we're going to go 8 of those. The one that is the one we keep out.
Yeah.
Constables, obviously, hopefully you've seen them. They've been awesome as we've gone throughout. So we hired 2 of them. One is at Central and the middle school. At the middle school majority of time, and at Central every day. And there's one at Fred West and Blade that kind of splits his time among all 3. They've been amazing walking around. They were both at the basketball game last night as well, just helping with security and helping with staff. They've been great talking to kids, being an advocate for our community. They've done some training with the Seaford Police Department, which I'll talk about in a couple slides. Like I said, it covers 40 minutes, and just their visibility has been amazing. When you go to those schools and you see them, it's just nice to see them out and about. And they've been able to do a nice job of checking and giving us ideas on how to help the school security at those. CRD map partnered with DEMA and got all 6 of our schools to have these new CRD maps. They came in and mapped everything. So again, if something's going on, and this also goes into the apps that we talked about before, you can kind of see exactly where things are happening in our buildings and be able to point out. There's a nice grid overlay. So for instance, it could be G7, they kind of know exactly where to go. And they have those maps. They're on their devices. They're on their cell phones for the police department and the fire department. And they have them accessible at all times. The Seaford Police Department, as I said, we're closely partnering with them back in January. And I know you guys were alerted to this through Dr. Miklas, but we had an awesome training with police, fire, and EMS that came to the middle school on Saturday and then the high school on Sunday, and did some training in those buildings on alert systems and just to keep them updated. And that was a great partnership. They also have a brand new virtual reality kind of system in the basement of the police station. And our constables were able to go there and train with the police on different scenarios that can happen at schools and actually go through different scenarios and see how they would respond and then talk to the police about those response systems. And if you ever want to see an awesome system, if you ask Marshall Craft, the police chief, the system is amazing. It really is. Project Unite, something we're working on. Some of you guys might know Joey Melvin. So he's helping us in a couple ways. So one of the things, we're going to a conference in the middle of March up in Pennsylvania to look at some event planning. And then he also sends us the Center for Safe Schools newsletter every week, gives us updates from across the country. And they've helped us in revising and updating our emergency handbooks as well, and just giving us pointers, things to go. We're going to use Joey Melvin as well to just do some safety checks on all of our schools to come through and give us, again, pointers on how to do.
Can you just clarify event planning?
Yeah, so the event planning is something just like last night's basketball game. So the goal is to come up with better plans for us at our football games in the fall and our basketball games in the winter. And to a lesser extent, baseball and stuff in the spring as well outside. That try to mitigate, obviously, to stop things from happening. But if something does happen, that we have a good plan in place to get people away from the situation, but also then get them reunited with families or into the community. And that's a 2-day conference that we're going up to. It's actually free of charge through FEMA, and they're allowing us to go up there, and that was through Joey Melvin and the police department. And then my last thing before I call Doug up here to talk about some weapons detection. Radio is another thing we're looking at. Obviously, money is the one thing we have to worry about, right? So this is not a back burner thing, but we're looking for grants right now and opportunities. We can purchase new radios for all the schools. So every school right now has radios that are used. Some of them are older and not in the greatest shape. So we're just trying to replace those just so staff can talk to each other. The goal being eventually that we can have radios that we can talk to any school in the district at any time as a just in case when things are happening. And then one of the last things, Doug and I think Dr. Miklas went to a presentation on weapons detection that I wanted to talk about a little bit as well.
I can kick this off for you, Mr. Henry. But this was something that was put out to all the districts across the state, and I guess other agencies such as like Dover Downs and the courthouse, etc. And I don't want to take all your thunder, but we did feel it's important to share this with the board, kind of get your opinion, maybe hear some of our thoughts, and just throw it out there and see what we think.
So basically, it's called Open Gate, and before we walked into the Vantech building and saw this thing sitting there, all I could picture what we say at the airports, right? It's like a big device with a piece going across the top of it, and I'm like, that's going to look crazy in our schools. But actually, when you walk in there, this thing's pretty sleek, and that's the first thing that I noticed. And actually, they have a rack going around it that you can actually change to your, like we could put J's on it or something like that. So where I'm going with that is, really, you don't even know you're walking through it. If you're, you strategically put it on each side of the door or something like that, people wouldn't even notice it going through. The other good thing about it is it can run off an electric cord, actually, so it can be ported, or it can run off a battery. So kind of like it's almost like a DeWalt battery, a rechargeable battery that goes down in the bottom base of it. And another thing to notice on it too was the top of it has those sensor lights in the top of it. So that was my next question with the batteries. And then I'm like, well, how do we know if the battery's low and we're not getting a good reading? So actually those lights actually indicate when somebody goes through it, and they will actually turn from, I think I'm right, Dr. McClure, green to red if they detect something. And the other thing is they also show the battery light inside that. So the cool thing about it is it's 25 pounds. It takes two of them, one on each side. So you gotta have one on each side of the person coming through. But it's 25 pounds a piece. And basically it's versatile. I mean, you can pick it up, you can move it. So Eric Faults are, we put it out at a sporting event. We can use it there. And then we ever decide to move it inside the buildings for some reason or another, you can put it out there, or you can even put it as the kids get off the buses and come in and just gently walking through it or something. Another good thing is, so you can adjust everything from an iPad or device. And basically what you can do is adjust the sensitivity of it. So you can adjust it down to where you pick up like a real small penknife, or you can go to a larger weapon. So kind of like a machete or a larger weapon or something like that. So you can set your sensitivity so you're not getting false alerts all the time. But like I said, if you really wanted to adjust it down and thoroughly go through something, you can do that also.
How far opposed to being together?
So they recommend, I think it was 4 feet, something like that, like 4 feet apart. You know what I mean? So, and they're still effective there. The other question I asked was, how does outside metal affect them and stuff like that? And the guy said it doesn't. So you can put them right up against a fence. Like I would take it at the football stadium, you know what I mean? You can put it right up against the fence and it would still be good there.
With them being so light, how durable are they?
I'm gonna be honest, Parker, I don't know how to answer that question, you know what I mean? I've not talked to anybody that actually has them.
Okay.
They look pretty durable. The thing was, so the wind was one of my concerns, like outside, and they're actually got weights that go in the bottom of them, so you can weight them down.
Okay.
And they said it hasn't been an issue. Dover Downs, like Dr. Mickelson uses them, and they were there at the presentation, and they said they've not had any issue.
They were using them outside events like Firefly
Right.
and NASA. That was an interesting. Yeah, so I mean, they're using them on uneven ground, a lot of different areas, and it seems to be, they rave about it.
How many pairs are we looking to purchase? Or are we just looking to purchase one?
So we were thinking if we do just enough to get by right now with sporting events, we would need two pair.
Mhm.
So we would need 4 total. And then we could just build from there, but that would give us a start. So that would give us each of the football entrances. And then, big basketball games, we could have multiple entrances there to go through, or like I said, even if we take them inside the schools, it gives us multiple points to go check.
Did we go over the costs?
So
It looks like
they're saying right now around 25,000 for a pair. For a pair.
Okay.
And, I don't want to steal your thunder, but a few things, the way they described it to us was, that's your fast lane. So as they recommend, school districts set that, and it's all a industry standard. So I'm making up, but it's like, let's say it's a GA2 setting. That's basically your big 9mm knife that size. That's the amount of metal that will pick up. So if you come in with a pen or a cell phone, you can still go right through that fast lane. Like you just go, go, go. If it buzzes, it also comes with a wand. So you have somebody there wanding. So then the next thing we as a district would figure out is who's going to do that.
Right. Well,
Right.
would be the constable.
So that's when the police would be involved, et cetera. And Newcastle County VOTEC is currently implementing this for their sporting events in Newcastle County. That's, Howard and the city, other schools in St. George's, et cetera. But yeah, they're speaking very highly of it. They've, when they find a knife, people just put it in a jar and they go in. No one's shaking anybody down. And again, the way they described to us, you are truly trying to prevent a mass casualty. That's what you're not trying to take away somebody's, hunting knife. You're just trying to prevent a big situation.
I think
So
they use Disney as an example.
that was a crazy example.
So they said that the people, they find hundreds, I guess it's like hundreds of guns and knives in the bushes around Disney because people get up there and don't know they have these. And then they see them and then they just start shucking there because they don't want to go all the way back, because like Disney, you're trucked in a long ways. It could be like 40. They don't want to go back, so they just throw their stuff in the bushes, hoping it's there when they come back. But they told that story pretty neat. So it's like they said, so that's another example they use though with Disney of how quick they can get people through. Because they said it doesn't interrupt the flow at all, it's just straight through. So it's really quick and personal.
Is there any neighboring states that's using this particular program?
What's that again, Jim?
The neighboring states, so we talked about what we have here in Delaware, but like Maryland or Jersey or PA.
So Virginia, where they had the shooting, I think they purchased how many documents?
80 or 90.
I think it was 80 or 90
After?
the week after.
Oh,
And I hate to say it, but they said that they were out there doing demos for them a year in advance and they passed on them. Now, we hear that neighboring county in Maryland is actually using this for some students to get into school, but I can't remember the name of that. And this wouldn't be, we just think the large scale events, we don't know who's going to be coming in. The outsiders, we just don't know. So we're really thinking about this. What was the other piece of that?
Well, one of the things that we talk about, like not obviously kids coming in schools not having them, but like if there's a report of a weapon on a kid, you can empty a classroom out. That classroom can walk through the metal detectors instead of having the whole school walk through it. So it's just another way that you don't need to be able to use it.
That's exactly it.
And these are all, there's also, different versions too. So these are compatible with cameras as well. Go with that cloud-based piece too, and they can work together, which is one of the nice things, and use that same system software.
What is the length or what's the lifetime of this particular product? They say X amount of years.
I don't remember. Do you, Dr. McDonald?
I don't remember exactly, but we could definitely get that information. And same thing about durability. We could get all that. I can't remember. It was probably a 3-hour session we sat through and I just can't remember that information. But, just because they only weigh 25 pounds, if you remember a few years ago, when everyone on social media was taking that thread of the 9mm and saying SHS or SMS, and it was a national, and then you pin it down to a text message where it says whoever. If we find that room, then like you said, we set them up outside and they just walk through it. So we see this being a part of school, but really it would be more sporting events out of the gate if we were to move in this direction. Obviously, communication would be a major piece. We would have to over communicate. This is, obviously because of caution. I would say the downfall, one of the downfalls is this, besides price, but this price of $25,000, the price has come way down. When you looked at this a few years ago, it was $200, $250 for these kind of systems, but it's perception. What's your community going to think? So that's one thing we as a group would have to wrestle with. I don't know. This is the first slide that Mr. Zoll shared with all of those things happening so close to us. I don't know. I just want everyone to be safe.
Well, I think messaging would be the key to it. It's part of the PR. And when we have the community events, let them know what it is and the reason why. It's more so being proactive.
Because God forbid it's you or your child.
Right.
I just have a couple questions. With the beacon and the soffit, you were saying that, you guys would be alerted, especially if we do even the catchphrase. Well, kids are on school and stuff, doing homework at night. And I know the district is not a 24-hour, 7 district. So who is getting alerted? And
We are 24/7 now.
We are?
Yeah.
So who's,
So there's,
that you?
Yeah, me,
Our council?
Lee Dickerson, who's our mental health, and we both agree that we want to be on there, and then the school principals, and assistant principals from each school. So there's 5 people on the list, and the way it works is they'll call the first person on the list, if that person answers, go throughout. If that last person then they go right back to the top, and they keep calling until someone picks up. My question to them was, when I said, well, don't you call the police? And they don't call the police because they don't have the kid's address, parent names, phone number. They just know that
Name from the water of us. So until one of us picks up, they keep continuously calling until someone picks up. And again, just, I mean, there's some neighboring districts, many, you know, I came from Milford, and when Milford started this, 3 years ago. One of the first weeks, they actually caught a student, that was actively planning. And we're able to see like his life really, you know what I mean, and able to get to the hospital quickly. So to us, that, I mean, yes, 24/7, it's rough, but it's not like it happens every day, you know what I mean? But if you can help and save one student, to me, it's worth it.
We have, I mean, at the collegiate level, we have a lot of different ones that students can put, you know, have apps and can talk to someone right away or set up an account.
Once we get that Stop It, Help Me app, the other nice thing about that is there's pieces on there that we can load resources to, and like the nationwide hotline, that students could click on that and call if they need to as well. So that'd be for the students as well. If you don't have that.
So if we did go this route with this, the detection system, would they let you demo it first?
I'm sure if we talk to them, they could do a demo with them and get one down here to try it on an event or something.
And you were mentioning that it interacts with cameras and stuff. I think one of my biggest things is, you know, you put an intervention, but if nobody's watching, if there's no response to having an intervention, then the intervention's useless. So we really have to think about, and it can't always be the same people, you know, who's gonna be watching the cameras, who's gonna act when these things light up red, and who's gonna do what?
I think that was a good question. I think that was the question around the whole place there. Was, okay, so we get these, how are we gonna deal with it after they ping, you know, after they go
Yeah.
off? So, but there again, people started talking a little bit, like constables, you know, stuff like that. Came to mind, like at sporting events, you know, you could put one person there. It's a little harder in a school, I think, without a large presence of security officers, you know what I mean? So that was actually talked about, that was one of the presentation.
And lucky enough, we already hired police presence at our sporting events, so it's not an added cost.
Right.
We're
We really work with
there.
them as a, I mean, they're close with it.
And it's not like these things aren't in place in other places that people visit. The problem is the perception that it's a school.
Right.
I mean, you can't go to Six Flags, you can't go anywhere, you can't go anywhere without going, you can't go to court, you can't go anywhere without going through these things. So it's not foreign, it's just the fact that it's in a school with kids that people automatically think, oh my God, something must have happened. So we really are gonna have to roll it out. If we do go this
Positive
right
messaging.
way, with positive messaging, and it's not because of a problem, it's typically been a problem.
Yeah, I agree, but you know, the other things that we can count on is that Seaford is typically a proactive district, you know, and we can take it back even with COVID, making sure we had enough Chromebooks before school started in fall, you know, so that's a positive that you know, say that we're always trying to make sure that we're not reactive.
That's the main reason we're looking at the cloud-based camera systems, because most of the camera systems that you put in-house are more, we got to go looking for information. There's a lot of artificial intelligence built into the cloud-based ones where we can actually get alerts. You can put people, like a picture of a person, and it'll look for that person. And then over time, if it sees that person, you can walk them by your school, it can alert you, so that it's doing those things where there's not always somebody sitting there looking at it, like you said. Is that it can actually start to pick up alerts and be more smart and proactive. And so that we're not reacting to things all the time, we can be proactive.
And to be honest, when you hire a company to do it, how do you know that's?
You know they're doing it.
You don't even know they're doing it, you know, so this, like Patch is saying, with this opportunity here, you have, you know, you can, it kind of like pings itself. Where I have a hard time sometimes believing that they actually, you know, look at our cameras. That's exciting.
I know what constables are because he messed with me sometimes.
Well, not talking about them, but it's like being an outside.
No, I know. I'm saying our constables are definitely good because he messed with me sometimes.
Those guys are doing a good job.
You know, what?
Thank you.
All right, 6.05 is athletic electronic ticketing update, and that is
Good evening.
So starting with calendar year 2023, the high schools utilize GoFan for ticketed events. So far, we've received a lot of positive feedback. There was a phased-in approach. So up until the Woodbridge game, which was January 31st, we did have a cash box on hand, and we were also educating fans at the gate for how to purchase digitally. So you could purchase up to the event until January 31st. From there on forward, we have moved to ending the sales at 12 o'clock, normally if it's, the day of an event, or when the event sells out, such as Laurel. Every single night, there's a group of us that receive an update that say the number of tickets, type of tickets sold, senior versus general admission, ticket price, total revenue, and overall total event revenue. Then we get a weekly snapshot that captures everything. That then reconciles to our weekly deposits that we're receiving in. We've also talked to some of the game workers to see their feedback. They did have a couple of suggestions. One of them was to move the table out into the hallway to have better connectivity, because in the beginning, people were coming in without downloading their ticket and the reception wasn't always the best. So I also think some of this was an education of both the workers and also the fans, so that they would have it downloaded and be ready with it. There was one comment made also by a game worker that they appreciated having the police in the past. When we've had bigger games, there's been a kind of a police presence around the cash box because you would have thousands of dollars. And now we're able to utilize that police officer or a constable or the SRO actually monitoring the game and the fans and having their presence be seen. So that's also another positive that has went on with GoFan. We did have one event that was canceled, and we were able to actually test the system to find out how long it took from the time Mark Cullen hit the button and said cancel to actually the person receiving their notification and reimbursement. And it was less than 5 minutes. I mean, it was very almost immediate. So that's helpful in case we do have other events that get canceled, rescheduled. Since we have implemented this, Coach Cullen has had 2 different districts reach out to him to get his knowledge, his experience, just have a better understanding of our operations here. So I also view that very much as a positive. In fall of 2023, we will be rolling this out at the middle school, but we first wanted to make sure that we had everything in place at the high school. And I think a lot of the success of this was really the communication, the text messages, the calls from Mr. Cameron. We have the boards. You can go and scan your QR code. You can go to the website. We tried, I think, every single communication method we could or that we thought of to really share that we were moving from a cash to a credit system. And I don't know if anyone has heard any feedback, but I mean, we're trying to improve if there are any situations that we need to adapt to.
Last evening at the game, obviously with a big crowd, we actually had some folks out in the outside as people came in redeeming tickets, and because it was nice enough to go, and that seemed to really make everybody go through faster. So we've learned, some things as we've gone through it this season.
Is there always going to be a cutoff time for ticket purchase?
Yes.
Is it always going to be the same time?
Yeah. So as we move forward, and I think this is also tied in with Mr. Zoll kind of security, our plan is that 12 p.m. on the day of the event is the ticket. I mean, unless it sells out beforehand, right, that would be the end time in terms of purchasing tickets.
Okay.
And you're right, actually, Mr. Cameron brought up a really great point. There were, I would say in the first couple of weeks, a hiccup where people were actually redeeming the ticket before they got to the gate. And the gate workers obviously allowed them to go through and kind of shared with them in the future. Like, before you get all the way up to the gate, please don't redeem your ticket like the night before at home. Wait until you're actually there.
So what will Saturday look like for us?
So Saturday, the conference runs this. Notice they are not using electronic ticketing. They're not using electronic ticketing yet.
What?
It's the purchase.
I was gonna say the same.
Yeah.
It's cash, and we have 350 tickets to pre-sell.
We have.
Yes, they go and sell tomorrow at 9:00 at the district office, and then you can purchase at the game.
You have your hand on that.
I can use.
Yeah, the headlamp and courtesy passes you have are good for the championship game, you and someone with you.
So Dia also uses GoFan, and also just so you know, I mean, I'm a financial person, the money from Saturday's game unfortunately also doesn't go to the district or the schools involved. And neither does DIAA, but DIAA does also use GoFan. So it would be the same sort of experience for our fans to go on, they're familiar with it, and purchase tickets that way.
Although if we do sell 100 tickets, they we get a $25 bonus from the conference.
$25?
Yes. Look, more money I'm getting to you, Ms. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Always appreciate it.
It's a game changer.
Thank you, Mrs. Brennan.
I think that's around.
Yeah, both. Kate. 6.06 is policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title 9. Mr. Zoll.
Yeah, so this is the first read. This is a very small change. In fact, the only change right now is that it's just putting me in me as the coordinator. So before it was Dr. Bell. So this is just something that has to be in by state code. I will say, come end of this school year or summer, there's going to be more changes to this as we put our policy back into in line with state code and state regulations on it. But right now, at least that we put this in there, so my name is in there.
Is that also updated on the website?
Yes. I think the website's already updated.
Yes, it's been updated for a while.
I didn't catch this until I actually do that. And I saw the name. And then we did a little more research and we figured it had to be the person's name, so. What? Any questions? Easy one, but I had it.
We're done.
Mrs. Brennan, you have policy DA, fiscal management goals, priority objectives.
Yes, I actually have the next 4 policies.
Right.
They all come from section D, fiscal management, and they're all the first reading. So over the past couple of months, my staff and I reviewed all of section D, and over the next 5 months, I will be bringing forward to you policies and regulations. So tonight it is 4 of them. The first one is DA, and what we are doing here is we are adding priority objectives to the title to make it in line with NEPN, which is the National Education Policy Network. It was last updated January 13th of 2003, but that is the only change.
You can go on.
Thank you. Okay.
6.08.
Is annual operating budget. We are adding language here to include federal government into the requirements. We are also changing it so it says it goes from district financial summary reports to financial reports, which is the wording that we utilize for the board meeting. This was last updated January 13th of 2003. The next one is DBA. This is budgeting system. So the 2 changes we are making here would be that it currently says timely reports will be provided to fund managers. They're available to fund managers, but then that we provide them to the board. So we're just making available and provided small word changes. This was last updated March 22nd of 2004. And then the last policy I have is DBD. So the change here is in the first sentence to create a district-wide budget instead of district-wide funding allocation process. That is an exhibit that in a later meeting will be removed. And it's no longer utilized. So we're bringing it in line with what the actual business practices we have. And this was last updated March 22nd of 2004.
Thank you. We'll be taking action on these policies as the first reading later here in the meeting. So we're down to 6.11. updated elementary and secondary school emergency relief construction project waivers. That's also you, Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, that's it. This is the third and final time you will see, this is the after construction project waiver. The reason you're seeing this for the last time is at a previous meeting, we had the actual RFP bid award for the athletic complex. So now all the numbers are reflected in this memo are the actual numbers, where in the beginning we started out with estimates and we've been updating them as we award the RFPs.
Okay. And then 6.12 is Fred Douglass ES School-Based Health Center renovations.
Yeah, so that is myself and Mr. Henry.
Henry's on there also.
Yes, we are both going to chat about it.
Okay.
So the bid opening took place February 8th, 2023. At this time, we are not coming forward to request awarding, given budgetary constraints. We are looking and exploring other funding opportunities. Our partner in the School-Based Health Center, Nemours, is fully aware and supportive of our decisions. We do have a temporary waiver in place to actually start enrolling students. And as of this afternoon, we received our DHSS Medicaid reimbursement rate, so we will be able to see students. So this will not impede the process of having a school-based health center, but we are exploring the funding and the timing of the funding in terms of the permanent location within Frederick Douglass.
Just the bid opening that we had was unfavorable to what we had budgeted. I'll be honest, quite frankly, ridiculous. The pricing that we got. So we don't feel comfortable moving forward with that. And I know how important this is. It kind of upset me too, because I put another week's work in for insurance, because they were squalling over the insurance. You know, they have to pick that up. And I went out and did some homework and figured out that we can do it ourselves to try to, you know, keep them on track with bidding it out and all that stuff. And it didn't help anything. It was bad. So hopefully we can go back out to bid maybe towards the fall and get more favorable bids. Maybe some more out there, because we only had 2 show up. We had 3 that were possible and 2 that showed up to the bid opening. But it's busy out there right now. Market pressure is great. Any questions?
I have none. Thank you, Mr. Henry, Mrs. Brennan. All right, we'll move on to the agenda action items. 7.01 is school choice. You have that agenda on your executive content. Remember, no names can be mentioned. Recommended action is to approve school choice applications 2022-23-43, 2022-23-46, and 2023-24-35, and to deny 2022-23-44 and 2022-23-45 as presented.
Can we get some context of why we're denying?
Yeah, so
It's on your,
No, I see that, but it's just saying.
can I compare?
Does it need to wait till?
can that be done in public session?
Probably not.
Process, it's a process issue.
Yeah, I mean, this was a process issue.
I mean, it
I
says,
mean, I can answer more in executive session if you really want me to. Or I'm maybe come up with it as well. But
I'm curious.
well, we can talk about it in executive session.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, all we can say here now is that it was recommended
That's fine.
denial because of missing the deadline. That's how we have to word that or say that at the moment. Okay? So the recommended action is to approve the school choice as a,
Well, do we have to move forward with the approval, or do we table it until coming out of executive session?
We have to table it.
All right, so we'll have to put that after we come back out of executive session. So we'll table that at the moment. Seven point oh two is field trips. You have a field trip agenda. There are 10 field trips on there. Does anybody have any questions on those? Recommended action is to approve the field trip agenda as presented.
Darren Savage, I move we accept the field trip agenda as presented.
Tim Hopkins, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the field trip agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Seven point oh three is facilities requests. There was no agenda for that. So we'll move on to DBA suicide prevention. This is.
Gary asked them for lines first.
I mean, it's just second read for the suicide prevention.
Yeah,
I mean, any questions, if you have any, here to answer them.
I have none. Anybody else have any? No questions.
Okay.
Okay,
That
good.
was easy.
So the recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy JLDBA suicide prevention as presented.
Marcus Ryder move to approve the second reading of policy JLDBA suicide prevention as presented.
Jeff Benson, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of policy JLDBA suicide prevention as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX. This is the first reading for the changes that were presented to us earlier. This changing, putting Mr. Zoll's name on there. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented.
This is Tim Hopkins. I move that we approve the first reading of policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented.
Darren Savage, I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Seven point oh six, policy DA, fiscal management goals / priority objectives. This is the first reading. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy DA, fiscal management goals / priority objectives as presented.
Jeff Benson, I make a motion to approve the first reading of policy BA, fiscal management goal / priority and objectives as presented.
Marcus Ryder, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy DA, fiscal management goals / priority objectives as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Seven point oh seven is policy DB, annual operating budget. This is the first reading. That policy we went over earlier. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy DB, annual operating budget as presented.
This is Darren Savage. I move to approve the first reading of policy DB annual reporting operating budget as presented.
Tim Hopkins, I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy DB, annual operating budget as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Policy DBA, budgeting system. This is the first reading also. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy DBA budgeting system as presented.
Ken Hopkins, I move that we approve the first reading of policy DBA budgeting system as presented.
Marcus Rhoda, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy DBA budgeting system as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.09 is policy DBD, determination of budget priorities. Again, this is the first reading. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy DBD, determination of budget priorities as presented.
Marcus Rhoda, move to approve the first reading of policy DBD, determination of budget priorities as presented.
Darren Savage, I second.
Been moved and second to approve the first reading of policy DBD, determination of budget priorities as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. .10 is the RFP SEA 21002 Central Elementary School Central Elementary renovations change order number 9. Do you need to have to say anything more about that?
I can answer any questions anybody has. So this is the one that you guys seen a couple of times. So it's basically we've been negotiating with the contractor, trying to get the price down, and ended up getting it down. I believe it was $3,394. So it was worth it. Every little bit helps. So we were able to get that down, and this is basically awarding that the difference there of 6,000. Was it
850.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Recommended action is to approve RFP SEA 21002-CES Reno Central Elementary renovations change order number 9.
Darren Savage, I move to approve RFP SEA 21002 CES Reno Central Elementary renovations change order number 9 as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve RFP SEA 21002-CES Reno Central Elementary renovations change order number 9. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Then 7.11, Mr. Henry, we have change order number 10.
And this one's basically a credit back to us for unused allowance. So it's $10,000 that'll be coming back.
Nice.
How much was that?
Are you spending it?
It's already spent?
They don't give me any money.
Very low.
Okay, I found, yeah, 10,000, okay, I see it. All right, recommended action is to approve RFP SEA 21002-CES Reno Central Elementary renovations change order number 10 is presented.
Marcus Rhoda, move to approve RFP SEA 21002-CES Reno Central Elementary renovations change order number 10 is presented.
Darren Savage, I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the RFP SEA 21002-CES Reno Central Elementary renovations change order number 10 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.12 is solar panel efficiency study. I believe this is a study that's being done for the state. The state will do the study and is funded by the state. Mr. Henry, you want to talk about that?
I'll let Ms. Brennan lead off, and then I'll take over.
Sure. So the Delaware Sustainable Energy Utility, or the SEU, has made available $15 million for LEAs over the next 2 years for solar panel grants, both in terms of efficiency studies as well as actually purchasing the materials. So the grants are based upon near enrollment, with the floor being $500,000, and we see for qualify for $500,000. You have to have a feasibility study before you're able to utilize any of the funds. And that feasibility study is 100% reimbursable by the SEU, even if the decision is made not to move forward once the feasibility study has taken place. So the items that could be covered would be panels, installation, utility upgrades. They can be on the rooftop, they can be on the ground. It could be a canopy system such as Deltec, and there's no required match from the district. So Mr. Henry has reached out to the town of Blades. We were looking at Blades based upon limitations and the moratorium with solar within the city of Seaford. So that directs us to Blades. Blades also is ideal because of the fact that it has the ground space, which would be the ideal location as opposed to putting it on the rooftop. So the maximum cost of the feasibility study, we did meet with a vendor, would be $20,000, which we would be fully reimbursed for. So if the board were to approve today, we would have to go forward to the state's clearinghouse committee to actually get access to these funds.
Yeah, so basically, we decided, like I said, Blades, for a few more reasons too, was that they wanted a newer building and it kind of fit that footprint. With Blades being one of our newer elementaries, crazy to say now it's 20 years old, but it is one of our newer buildings. It doesn't seem like it. So, but yeah, that one kind of fits. And then also Delmarva Power, they work along with the solar grants and stuff like that. So it kind of fit for us. If we decide to move forward, I think it'd be a good thing and to go take forward.
How much would that, the solar, I guess, impact the current electric bill that they have?
We won't know that until the study.
Yeah. So what the study will really tell us is it will tell us, how much it will cost in terms of return on investment, in terms of the energy. It will talk to us in terms of how many panels do we need, what sort of connectivity and everything else. I do know, talking to some of my counterparts, some districts have decided not to move forward exploring this opportunity. So the good news would be for those districts who take advantage, there will be additional funds that would then be distributed after. So while our initial floor is at $500,000, if districts opt out, funding would become available for those who have participated, additional funding.
But based off of what you said, it would probably still only benefit Blades because of the city of Seaford.
That is true, but we also, candidly, we do not know how much it is going to cost us. And if the cost would come in at, $750,000, we will have a very different conversation in terms of would we want to participate in this, given the fact that we right now only have an allocation of $500,000.
And I don't like put them on the rooftops either, just because I think it's a maintenance problem, down the road. So it gives us plenty of land there to kind of do a trial run and to see how we make out with them. And I think it's a bit for now to get us what it's going to be all about.
And I think we'll learn a lot by participating in the efficiency study in terms of things maybe we haven't even considered.
So you're asking, we need to take action to approve this study, is what you're asking us
To move forward with this
to
thing.
move forward with the study. Anybody else have any other questions?
How long do they tell you how long the study is for?
They never, I don't think we ever asked that question.
We asked how long it was going to take.
So
We can
we can find
find out.
out.
We can follow back up with him.
And when you talk about the land out at Blades, all I think about is the playground. So where's this land at?
Okay, so Chrissy hit me with the same thing when I walked in there. She was like, don't even. I was like, no, look, we got to. So basically, there is a spot up on the, it'll be, so if you're standing looking at the playground, it's on the right-hand side up in the right corner. So if you come in around the back of the school, it's straight ahead of you, back behind that backstop. So it's unused land back there. The kids don't go back there. So the playground's off if you're standing there, it's off to your left-hand side.
Well, I remember, Blaze, when we shrunk from, when they, started having other, like, autistic kids and stuff there, that they put another fence up to shrink the playground and make it a smaller area for staff to get to.
Yes,
So are you saying this is outside of the fenced-in area?
it's outside that area and it's also outside her field day area.
Okay.
So she was concerned about her field day area. So I stayed out of, basically was able to stay out of every area that she uses. It was an unused, I want to call it the hill. It's almost a hill in the back there. And we walked back there with a contractor on a feasibility study. And he said that he thinks the panel would fit in there. No problem.
They consider doing, parking for
We could,
solar panels as the.
we could do that. And that could be something we do on another project, you know what I'm saying, to allow us to do some more because not have to worry about them.
That's right.
I do like that, though. I saw that at, I think it was.
Terry can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I like that.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Henry, Mrs. Brennan. This is an action item. Recommended action is to approve the solar panel efficiency study as presented.
Jeff Benson, I move that we approve the solar panel efficiency study as presented.
Marcus Wright, I second.
Then moved and second to approve the solar panel efficiency study as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we're down to our last agenda action item, and that is dealing with the financial reports, and I'll turn that back over to Mrs. Brown.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So at the end of January, we are 58.33% of the way through the fiscal year. Since our December meeting, we have expended or encumbered $877,000. Across all funds, we have 61.25% expended or encumbered. Local salaries are trending still in line. They are at 55.86%. You will notice that since our December meeting, the schools themselves have started to encumber and spend more of their budgets. I'm also starting today and over the next couple of weeks, meeting with each of the principals to talk about the rest of their year budgetarily and their plans, as well as the year-end deadlines, even though, June does seem pretty far away right now. The next slide, we have our tax collections. So you will notice in the fifth column from the right-hand side, we now have veterans tax credit added to senior property tax credit. Next year, I will break them out into two separate columns. In February, we received our first veterans tax credit of $7,810. In total, we have collected $75,797 for January. At this point, we are $52,975 away from hitting our target of 98%, which is our $5.965 million. We also still have our other senior property, and we'll have another veterans tax credit. This was just the preload. So we will have some additional revenue coming in above and beyond our monthly tax collections. Our set aside has still not changed since the month of July. And moving into our revenue report in the state funds, the top third, there was an increase of $193,000 approximately since the end of January. The majority of this is in formula salaries, cafeteria, and also education sustainment. In terms of local funds, we've had an increase of $107,000, which was in current expense, preschool tuition, and other local revenue. And then down at the bottom part of the page, federal funds increased by $10,000, and that was because we were awarded the CTE Innovation Grant.
I have a small question.
Okay.
The veterans credit,
Yes.
is this for disabled veterans? Or is veterans across the board?
Veterans across the board. There's, and I can share with you a link. I went to the Department of Finance's website to find out like the official name and some additional information on it to make sure everything was lined up in terms of naming and all of that. But it is for veterans as a whole. It's kind of similar to the senior version, but obviously it has different requirements.
And you have to go to the state website?
Yeah, I think it goes through Department of Finance, Division of Revenue.
Karen, you can share.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. So for the financial reports, the recommended action is to approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Darren Savage, I move we accept the monthly financial reports as presented.
Kim Hopkins, a second.
Then moved and second to approve the monthly financial reports as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we're on long range agenda. First item there is February the 1st through February, the whole month. I guess the 28th is the Teacher of the Year and Behavioral Health Professional of the Year nominees is open. And then February the 1st to March the 31st is Educational Support Professional of the Year nominations are open. March the 6th, we're at the Seton High School auditorium for the board public meeting at 6 p.m. On March the 16th, or excuse me, first, March the 9th, which is not on your paper probably, is the, from 5 to 6 p.m. is the Youth Art Month Art Display opening reception at Gallery 107 on High Street. That again is on March the 9th. And then March the 16th is the Blades Elementary concert, grades 1 through 12. That starts at 6 p.m. March the 17th is Professional Development Day. March the 20th, we're back in the boardroom for a board meeting at 6 p.m. And then on March the 24th, Scripps Spelling Bee at the high school starts at 6 p.m. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? I think that's all.
Kids won't be in school for some time.
All right, moving on, we need to go into executive session for personnel matters and legal updates and student matters. So I need a motion to move to executive session.
Kim Hopkins, I move that we enter executive session.
Marcus Stroud, second.
Then moved and second to move into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And the time that we'll point out is 7:34